Live. Monica Ashley, Brad, Dr. Fox, and a rare appearance by Chris. This is like, this is amazing. LinkedIn had to like part its waters to get Chris on here. Like,
I didn't think Chris was a real person, actually.
he's an AI. He's an advanced AI. He's GPT-5.
Chris GPT.
I like that.
That was great.
I can roll with
It's a
that.
good nickname, actually. Chris GPT. So we've been accused of not having enough female representation. So we have 2 out of our 3 female co-founders. Monica Ashley. Judy is probably driving from San Diego to El Centro for her clinic
Good old California traffic.
because it's Thursday. Yeah. But what do you think, ladies? Let's start with you guys. What's been going on since the last live stream for SOS? You guys are both involved in different aspects of the planning committee. And let's hear from you guys first.
You go first, Bunny.
Wow. Well, this has been an exciting journey, I guess, because obviously being a side donor, first of all, good morning. Happy Wednesday to everybody. um, it's been a great journey, and I know obviously as a site owner, it's an experience that is gonna let me speak up and let out all my I'm not gonna call it frustrations, but I mean all my the things that I would like to have solutions for. That's exactly what we're here for. So this is a great opportunity, not just for us, but for everybody out there that has sites and also that work in the industry. It's not just for sites; it's for the industry as a
Wait,
general. Yes.
wait, Monica, you're a site owner. We gotta dig deeper here, okay? What is your frustrations as a relatively new site owner now in Los Angeles? Um, Give a shout out to your site, and then what's your frustrations? Like top 3.
Okay. I will say the my top three things that need to find solutions out there and for the rest of the industry to understand is first of all, I will say that as a Latinos in clinical research representative too, the diversity part, I think the sponsors, I mean, many sponsors talk about it, but not everybody is actually walking the talk, providing the documents or facilitating things for the sites for this fact, and not just that, but also when we talk about the employees, right? Um, on the other hand, the other part that I found a little bit um, different and sometimes it's even I have found it sometimes a little bit offensive on the when you're doing the process is also the budget negotiation.
Yep.
The budget negotiation sometimes is delightful and sometimes it's extremely painful. Um, the other thing is um, the regulatory part. When you're doing the business negotiation or the budget negotiation, that the sponsors expect you to complete everything even before you start it. And then when you have everything ready, that you think, I mean, we did the effort, we make the sponsors, um, we reach the goal within the time and everything. Sometimes they say, you know what, we're gonna close the study. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Yep.
So
Or
that's the
Yep.
yeah,
industry rule. Hurry up and wait. Wait until we're done with you.
yeah. So that will be my top three.
Awesome. I guess
Yeah.
it's my turn. Yeah, so I think for me, I have like a very a special scenario because I'm the only one that is not a sign owner here, but soon to be one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Right. I think coming from my background for CRO perspective, there is, and also in the industry, a professional in the industry, CRA, I think that I kind of fit that perspective that this is obviously not just for site owners. I think for those CRAs and or even site professionals, right, that are considering moving forward in their career and wanting to network or wanting to actually see firsthand, not just what the great things are about owning the site, but what the hard things are. I mean, I think that if you have a grapple on what the hard things are, you're able to really make a good decision on where it is that you want to go. And I feel that SOS is the best opportunity for those individuals. And like, who would that be, right? For example, if I know Brad and Dan and Dr. Fox, y'all had mentioned in a previous podcast about, why as a site owner would you have your CRC show, or why would you, have your professionals come in and actually see that, give them the idea to have a site? Well, potentially, if you're a site owner and as a doctor, your CRC who has already trained and facilitated trained individuals in these sites potentially could own their own and go into partnership with you, right? So giving them that viewpoint is actually helpful and could even potentially expand your business, right? And so there's that perspective. And then me as a CRA, right, coming from the CRO side, I know a lot of CRAs who are no longer happy, or they want more, but they no longer want to be in corporate, right? And so in that case, this gives them the opportunity to network, to speak to individuals, and to kind of get a gist on what it is that SOS can do to help kind of facilitate that growth and next step into a site perspective. And maybe even if as a CRA, if you know doctors, right? Most CRAs come from clinical background, especially nowadays, right? And so if you know a doctor or PI, bring them in with you to SOS, talk to them. You can, tell them, hey, we can speak to other site owners, see if we actually really want to do this. Give yourself the opportunity to do this, right? And the way I see SOS is a really great option for, again, not just site owners, but everybody outside to come in and openly and candidly speak about all the issues and all the pros and cons. And then ultimately even bringing in those, for example, these vendors, right? And I actually just got off the phone with one yesterday that are the underdogs, but that are really trying to implement site perspective and really help the site. And so, if you're coming in or you have a low budget and all those kinds of things, it saves time from having to shop around and or look for individuals. You're going to have that opportunity there to speak with other people, what their connections are, and also connect with who we have present. And so I feel like it's a one-stop shop. It makes it so simple, quick, and easy, and it takes away all the BS, right? And how do they say, why build the wheel or reinvent the wheel if it's already been built, right? It saves time, energy, potentially even money, right? And I think that for starter sites, that is literally the key in everything. If you can start off easier, then do it, right? Why waste the time in trying to find all this information online and hope that you're making the wise decision when you can already figure that out in one day, one simple, cheap ticket, and one simple, cheap trip to Arizona, right? So I think it's a no-brainer. And obviously, when we spoke about this, I thought this was amazing. And so I hope to bring that perspective when we are talking about the different topics and considering also the professionals out there. So if you are a professional, you're not a site owner, please note that we are considering you and everything that it is that you're looking for as well when we're having these topics so that we can help as a whole.
So, sorry, go ahead, Monica.
No, please, Chris, after you.
I was just going to say, as the least informed member here, how many people have purchased tickets for the conference at this point?
That is a great question. As the second least informed, let me look. I'll look live right now, guys. The problem is I have to remember my password. So
Okay,
this
so
doesn't use a Versatrail.
Yes,
I
I
think
use
you
Versatrail.
Well,
think
I
we
look
for
at
that.
that. I would
while
like
he
to
looks,
ask.
I have another follow-up question. Have we been telling those who've purchased tickets that they should probably start looking for a hotel very soon, or at least a few months prior to the conference? Have we been telling people that?
No, this would be a great place to do it. There's a rock and gem mineral show. If you
Exactly.
guys wait till the last minute, it's gonna be a problem to get a hotel. Tucson's over 1 million people. There's a lot of hotels. It's a sprawled out city.
There's like
You will
800.
find,
We looked.
yeah, you will find a hotel, but like to be there is no official hotel because we're on an actual university campus, like in the student union. But there's hotels everywhere. But the gem and mineral show is also in the center of town, so all those hotels are gonna go soon. So you gotta like just keep going further and further out. So it's gonna Uber. I'll drive some people, but I can't drive everyone. I'll drive a few people. Maybe everyone else will volunteer as well. I don't know, but we can't do like for 800, and we currently have 226 tickets.
Wow.
So
226.
we're
And
a quarter of the way to sold out.
Yeah, we're what 11
Ah.
months away, 11 months or maybe 10 months away. That's
Yes,
pretty
but
huge.
sale ends December 31st this year.
Oh, okay.
We have to close sale because we have to give final count to the University of Arizona.
So essentially, what is that? 9 months?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great count, and I feel like outside of the things that we'll be talking about, I think it's important to mention that if you're not already thinking about this, having just that many people, if we already cut it off at that point, that many sites being present, this is not just huge for underdog vendors that are trying to actually get access to sites to help them create and better implement their systems and all those kinds of things like that. But it's also extremely beneficial for those that are new site owners, again, because you get to network, create that group that you need to be able to reach out to speak to. And I think this is definitely the place to be, because like I said, we're going to be talking about all these really great topics. And to mention that we are actually involving you all in that process, right? So it's not like we're here closed doors, and deciding on our own and just bringing in the most commonly top speakers. We want to bring in everybody. We want to consider everybody's pinpoints on their frustrations and issues and actually come and with solutions, and so that you'll leave with actual solutions, as opposed to just showing up for a conference, just speaking or hearing people speak and, picking up swag and then just leaving. And, that's not what we're about. And so,
So when are we putting forth that questionnaire to all of the ticket purchasers, all the attendees for the conference? When are we putting forth the if I recall correctly,
Survey Monkey.
Yeah, the Survey Monkey that asks, "What do you want us to speak on?"
We are.
When's the plan to?
It was designed to, so a series of surveys, one being first developed after this podcast. We wanted our speakers. So if you're listening right now, put in the comments, what do you want to talk about at this conference? And that's going to be what goes on that first survey. So it's really important that this is an engaging community effort for a conference. Here's your microphone, talk about it. Let us know what you want to talk about. And we're going to put that in the agenda.
But aren't we going to release a survey to all of the attendees? Not the speakers, but the attendees, and they're going to choose.
Yes,
right?
almost like a nomination thing. So here's your nomination podcast where anyone listening out there, I don't know how many people are listening. I can't tell.
So like each of us will come up with 2 topics, the potential speakers.
Yeah.
And then we'll release a survey with those. How many of us are there going to be? 8. So 16 items. Here, pick 7 of them, 8 of them, something like that.
Plus whatever our listeners right now on this podcast are going to tell.
That's what I mean. What I mean. So we're going to each of us come up with 2. There's going to be 8 of us, right?
But it could be
Judy,
whatever. It could be whatever anyone else puts in the comments. It's not just 16 items. It's a nomination thing. So
okay, just trying to figure out how we're going to do this. So
yeah,
and so the audience is going to decide what we're speaking on, right?
Yep. This is a democracy here, Chris. It's a democracy.
Right.
Exactly.
And so every other conference would be totalitarian in that case.
Ooh, I'm not going to go there.
I did go there, but I'll mute again.
One thing I can say is CRPN we negotiate for our site partners. If a site partner wants help with negotiations, we help. There's a huge trend coming down the pipeline right now that I think everyone should know about. Pharma companies are trying to rein it in after COVID. So they are squeezing CROs hard, saying, we don't want to pay, but this overhead, this is our limit. This is as far as we're going. We're not going to pay COVID prices anymore. And they're looking more at an unrealistic bar than the actual cost that it would take to do something. The gas prices haven't gone down since COVID hit. They're still high. The cost of doing the research is still high, but for some reason, they think that it's a great idea to try to squeeze the sites into this situation where they get more for their money. I'm not sure where they expect us to get this magic money to do their research, but I think it's really important for us as sites to come together and say, this is not fair market value. You're cutting your throats in quality, and we really need to do this. That's probably my first concern is this isn't dire straits. We don't get money for nothing, and inquiries are not for free, and it's just going to be a big deal. Combine that with the new FDA mandates for diversity and the overall increase in values and therefore enrollment, and you're seeing what's happening here. Pharma companies are trying to rein it in because they fully expect to have to pay more. They have to pay for more enrollment. So they're trying to get that enrollment very cheap and unrealistically underfunded. I think
So,
that's a big deal that we're going to be talking about in 2024.
and I completely agree. And to a degree, the sponsor, in my opinion, is correct. It's not, we're no longer in COVID where everybody's worried about having to disinfect and all of that. But what they're not, and they're aware of this, sponsors are certainly aware of this, but inflation's still completely out of hand. I mean, just to give an example, so I don't go shopping too often, but I went yesterday with my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and these cookies that I really like, they're the ice cookies. I don't know if y'all know. They're like sugar cookies with the
Yep, with the icing on it. Yep.
Really like those. So last time I purchased some was about the last time I went grocery shopping about 9 months ago, and they were a little over $3. Went to grab a box of them, and they're $8 now. So that's in 9 months more than double.
Mm-hmm.
So if you kind of project that throughout the rest of what's going on in America, right, including at our sites, we're experiencing this inflation, and we have to be compensated to account for it. It's that
Not
simple.
to mention the service of the employees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's part of
the
the
highest
inflation.
thing. Hmm.
Mhm.
The wages are totally different than it was before the COVID. So and also for a site to keep the employee retention, that's incredibly important. Otherwise, we're gonna have a lot of people leaving the clinics because they find other places where they get paid more. And this
Mhm.
includes the sponsors. If the sponsors are going to be reducing the employees' salaries or not giving them more, or increasing it, or giving them a lot of more work than they should be, people are gonna still moving because there are many options out there.
Mhm. And the new strategy now is CROs are no longer volunteering. They're no longer volunteering invoiceables. You'll see that there might be like 3 invoiceables on a budget agreement, a budget negotiation. You as a site have to make your own invoiceable table, and you can't be afraid. You have to give that to your negotiator. Otherwise, you're not going to get the invoiceables anymore. And CROs are being told by sponsors, oh, we really want to get away from invoiceables. It costs us a lot of money, not just in the payments themselves, but actually in the processing of the invoiceables. So now they're not even volunteering those to you. You have to be the one to add it to your budget. It's those little bitty, and then I don't know, almost everyone on here has negotiated a trial, but when someone comes to you with 20 to 25% overhead, I have to laugh. How in the world is that fundable? That's literally half of what it would take on an overhead to run a trial. And these CROs are the strategies. Oh, this is fair market value. We've given you the best possible cost. My favorite one was, here's the contract, here's the budget. We'd prefer if you just signed it without changes. That was literally what came out of the CRO's email. We'd prefer if you sign this without changes.
Well, to be fair, it is sorry, Monica. It is a business. They are a business. They want to make money. So yeah, of course, to be fair, that's what they would like you to do. Just like if you returned it to them, here, we want triple what you just sent us.
Yeah.
This is fair. Just sign it. Because you're a business too.
My biggest fear is, how many sites are just signing it?
Quite a few. Especially
they must be.
Many ones.
Yeah, if they are new, they probably will do it, but then they are going to notice that it's not financially, objective for the site within the first study.
Well, until it's too late.
And so then maybe potentially doing a breakdown of one of these in one of the discussions, and so that people get a full view, especially if they're new.
Let's walk through a negotiation.
Mm-hmm. I have to mention my favorite one, just like Dr. Fox says. In the budget that they stipulate how long you're going to take doing each of the assessments and how much they think you should be getting paid for that little time that they think is going to, you're going to spend, but they don't think that the person is spending that little time has a PhD or has an MD or a DO after. So it's just crazy sometimes. But obviously, I wanted to mention this when Ashley was talking, and is at the SOS, besides letting out all these problems or all these issues that the industry is currently passing through, we're going to find solutions. That's the idea. And that's why it's important that the sponsors, the CROs, the vendors are part of this, because we need to all come together and find solutions. It's not just the sites. And obviously the sites are the center of the tension in this for our SOS conference, but we need the sponsors, we need the CROs, we need the vendors, and we need all the stakeholders around. And obviously, if you're looking for a job, this is going to be a great opportunity too, to network and get to know more people. Yeah,
I love that idea, Monica. I would love to see let's just air out the dirty laundry throughout these podcasts throughout the year. And then when we get to the conference, we've already done all of our complaining and our griping. Let's all meet face to face and really get down to the solutions. We don't want to waste our time complaining, because let's face it, complaining is literally just bringing forth the questions. If you waste all of your time complaining, you're never going to get anything done. And that may be the loop that we see at these other conferences. There's not as much follow-up or even preventative discussions beforehand. So you just find yourself in the same exact situation every single year.
Yeah, so this is going to be the roundtable therapy.
This is where Chris can come and, just get some therapy. He's doing like 30 budgets a week, and he's just going to unload.
Are you guys reading LinkedIn, the comments here? They're really, really good.
We'll get to the comments right now. I just wanted to make sure everybody got something to say that they wanted to say. Or should I get to the comments?
Yeah, Brad, did you want to say something?
I did want to mention one thing, because we didn't actually say this. So what Dr. Fox just mentioned was that we are going to be airing this out. So every month coming up to the actual SOS, we're going to be doing these live roundtables, right? So if you already registered, you will be getting those notifications via email, so that you're aware. We want you guys to attend so that we can get your feedback, because feedback is everything, right? That's the way that we keep it out of just a table and everybody's involvement. So as long as you guys are being responsive and actually responding to the surveys, if you're not able to attend, this is how we can definitely get things rolling a bit better. So please be on the lookout for those emails so that you can be involved, because that's what we're definitely wanting to happen. That's it.
Perfect. Keep the questions coming. The comments coming. We will. This is a live brainstorm with all of us. We're gonna do this every month, I'm guessing. Hamid said he likes this roundtable. We'll do it. Someone else said this is interestingly how SCRS started. Small is the new big. So, LinkedIn user said CRC recruitment and retention continues to be a significant pain point. Could we include this as a topic of discussion in the actual conference? Of
Mhm.
course.
Of course.
What do you guys think about this? Maybe we talk a little bit about pain points with this.
That's one of the points that we were discussing with the budgets, because obviously if the site is not getting paid the overhead and it's not getting paid a good budget, guess what's gonna happen?
Some
What's
sponsors
what?
actually. Sorry, go ahead, Brad.
No, it's I feel guilty of like really harping on the financial aspects and financial issues with sites, but frankly, stuff like this, and even as Ashley points out, or Monica rather, a lot of you can't do hardly anything else at a site unless you are being paid and you have some cash flow, right? Like, yes, we can do some nice things for our employees, but let's not BS. Like, we got to pay them competitively, because otherwise, if you can jump to a CRO and make six figures, why the hell wouldn't you do that? Obviously, again, there are things sites can do beyond money, but so much of what we do, I see people talking about logistics, recruitment, retention. It all boils back down to sites having some cash flow to do that. So I feel guilty sometimes about constantly harping on the money aspect, but it's really, I think, underappreciated how much of a difference it makes if sites are just paid appropriately and on time. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I would,
Brad?
I would add
agree
to
with
that. I would add to that, Brad. And we talked about this last conference or the last podcast I was on. This came up. I think it was with you guys. And the first time I've encountered it in which a sponsor was willing to pay for a difficult study to recruit. They were paying a bonus per patient randomized, and a significant bonus. And most sponsors, as this commenter on LinkedIn points out, sponsors really don't account for the more difficult studies. They just expect you to recruit and randomize patients just as you would for a simple trial, which there are few and far between, but that's what
On
they
screen
expect.
failure ratios.
Yeah, well, sponsors are, they're not great at what their perceived screen fail rate will be, but they're within the realm, generally speaking, right? At worst, they're 50% off, generally
At
speaking.
work.
At worst.
That's a pretty big range, Chris.
It is, but at worst, right? It's not like they're saying, hey, we're only going to have one screen failure per 10 patients screened, when it's, the screen failure rate may be 50%, right?
Mhm.
They're saying it's 30. It's usually something like that. That's what we're expecting, at least in my experience. But occasionally they are way off.
I did want to just mention one thing. I love now I just see LinkedIn user, but you're right. I've talked to some of the founders of SCRS, and if you talk to those founders, the initial ones, the ones who were there with Christine Pierre, the ones who did all of that at SCRS, you are absolutely right. This is how SCRS started. Is it was a bunch of people who were kind of tired of this. They started talking with each other. They found something in common, and they decided to do something. The first SCRS, it was only like a group of people drinking martinis at a beach. That was it. And this is,
Really?
it grew into this
Where's the
big,
beach? Where's
giant
martinis?
thing. So before you start adding the money to it, before you make these giant conferences that are very profitable to the people who own them, there is a fundamental idea of trying to help the sites. So I think that you're spot on that. And the other thing that might just be considered, I know that we harp on the other conferences and I know that we talk about the expenses and the costs, but I should mention that some of these pioneers they've kind of overpriced at least some of the people in the industry. They had good intentions, and I still, if I can afford it, I still plan on trying to go, only because it's how you network. It's how you can continue to talk to people. So So maybe that's just something to consider. It's not just like on or off us versus them. In fact, I have talked to some of the SCRS people, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of their team members showing up to this conference.
Definitely. I think that healthy collaboration, healthy, I'm not going to say competition, because I feel that, SCRS is so big already. They have their own focus, their own thing. I think us as a smaller group, we're able to kind of more directly approach with the sites a little bit better in the sense, because we're so small. But I think that it's good to have new blood come out into the industry, because it reminds, I guess, everybody on the whole that, one, there is room for all sorts of, I guess he's not invention, but just change, right? There's room for change. There's room to make, space for everybody. And two, it also, reminds individuals, right, or in general, as a whole, everybody, that there are focuses that are need to be met. And if there's been sway or not sway, or however you want to put it, being clear with my words, but we're here for sites. It should be here for sites always. Everybody external to that should be a part of the conversation, but not the focus of the conversation, because the sites, it starts with the sites. The sites are everything. This is how we get our patients. So this is how it needs to be and how it should be. So obviously, the way that we're going about this, we're really doing our best to, again, involve everybody as much as possible. We've even gone through that focus as much to be able to even how we're bringing on sponsorship, right? We're making sponsorship equal so that we don't have focus on one or two sponsors or this or that. So there's any way or form of favoritism, because again, our focus is not everybody external. Our focus is sites, right? This is why it's in the name. And so to stay true to the purpose, that is how we're doing our best around the entire process of also catering to other externals, is that it always comes back to the site. And we make it very clear, or at least Dr. Fox and his wife makes it very clear in those meetings, that this is the focus. So if you want to be here to help the sites, to be a part of the change, to bring opportunity and implement in the discussion, we're happy to have you on, but understand that, again, it comes back to the sites always. And so I think that's what, at least for now, is defining us. And, we're hoping that we can do everything we can to help the sites that feel so far like they have not been heard.
I mean, I love the idea of like, look, we're not putting on a conference so we can make as much money putting on conferences as we can, right? We're trying to actually create and provide value to sites. And some of that is, to your point, Ashley, like maybe turning away people who want to throw more money at it if they're not providing the right type of value to the right people, and I don't know how you can't get behind that. I mean, it's one thing if you want to put on conferences for a living, that's cool. Make money putting on conferences, but let's not pretend like it's for someone else, and I think that's where we do have some differentiation, is, being able to be that discerning when it comes to, who sponsors. I mean, you have to be able to provide something. We don't take your money and shove you in a booth, like actually bring something to the table.
Wait, so private equity owning conferences like not necessarily going to produce good outcomes for sites?
It makes, it's good outcomes for, people who want to put money in their pockets.
The bank accounts for SVB Bank.
I wanted to mention something, and obviously I need to say it. I sometimes have the feeling that the sponsors, or the relationship in between the sponsors and the sites, is like Tyson with the chicken farmers.
Yes.
That they are kind of trying to kill them, squeeze them as much as possible, to the point that it's killing us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right,
I needed to say it.
We've got more. Thank you, Monica. We've got more questions. Actually, one was about SVB Bank. Keep the questions coming. Look, I'll stay as long as I need to, because if you guys have to bounce, I respect it. I'm not at the site today, so I'm good. Darshan's making fun of our beards. I'll get to Darshan's comment. Well, let me get to Darshan's now about what makes us different. Because it's related to what we just talked about, and then I'll go back. So keep your questions, comments coming. Even if I skip it, I'm coming back. All right, It's like a boomerang. I'll come back no matter how far we throw it. I'll come back. Darshan says, just curious as you see it, whether these 4 letters or something else, has there been enough change because of these conferences?
Has there been any change?
I think that there's been
mic drop, Chris.
No, I think that SCRS has done a very good job trying to establish baselines. Just remember, before SCRS, there was nothing. At least now they're doing site baseline surveys. They're offering, now granted, I think you have to pay a lot of money or some money to be a member of SCRS, and then you have to pay to go to the conference. But when you are a member of that, they're starting to get those surveys. Like when I started my company, one of the very first, or one of the biggest citations that I did was their SCRS white pages, because they have in there the percentages of sites pulled versus the problems that they're having. There's entire articles about withholding. So I think that the changes that you've seen may not necessarily be from the conferences, Darshan, but more with the presence in the industry, where sites are actually seeing that, saying, wow, I guess there are other people like us. So maybe just awareness might be what we've accomplished.
So are there citable changes? Like, can you name one that's occurred in the industry?
So one of the biggest ones that they're looking at is number of days cash on hand. That's what they do in every single site survey. So for the past, since 2015, when they started this survey, it's always been around 66%. 66% of sites have less than 90 days cash on hand.
Okay.
It's now at 58%.
Okay.
So that is a notable change over time. It's a slow change.
Did they directly change that? And I mean, frankly, their sponsors, their big level sponsors are the ones who can actually make that change.
Yep.
The ones who are supposed to be paying the sites. So, I mean, they seem well positioned to actually put pressure on their sponsors to make changes. But that's what I find a little bit frustrating is like, hey, you're taking all this money from the companies who are, sticking it to the site. So like, how can we,
so that's where,
what are you doing?
To answer your question, Chris, I think there's simply a change in awareness. We can't have a measurable metric that says, yes, it's a lot better now. In fact, I feel that post-COVID, like there are 2 sponsors where when I worked, refused to give the withholding back to their sites when they were dying from the COVID pandemic. And a lot of sites, or a lot of sponsors all came together, we're going to release withholding. We're going to get sites the extra money they need. There's all that's going to happen. That was great during COVID. And I thought, well, maybe we're getting somewhere. Now COVID's over and they're just throttling it. They're not cutting out on the CROs. They're squeezing the sites probably more. It's probably worse now than it was before the pandemic.
So we dunk on these 4-letter conferences a lot. And even before we ever thought of having a conference, we've been dunking on them. So it's not like now that we're competing, okay, let's start bashing them. First of all, I got to say SCRS, huge respect to Christine Pierre, rest in peace. She's the founder. I personally know she had every right intention. She was really early to this stuff. She was here before social media, wanting to unite sites when it was actually difficult to unite sites. She was able to do that. Companies evolve over time, especially when founders are no longer there. And this is one of the reasons why I think small is sometimes better. Small is the new big because, look, you can be removed from your mission and you get less efficient as you get bigger because you have different interests that you're trying to serve. So, like, the premise of SCRS and all these conferences were started with good intentions, and they probably still do a lot of good, but doesn't mean it can't be improved, doesn't mean it can't be cheaper, doesn't mean we can't have more immediate outcomes at a cheaper price and where we're not pricing out coordinators. So I just wanted to put that out there, and we'll keep dunking on them because it's fun, but we're not dunking on them because we're competing now. We've been frustrated with this since a long time.
Actually, I think that brings up a really great point because we've talked about openly how I mean, because we talk on sponsors, CROs, and maybe even vendors sometimes, right? So I think that our perspective in bringing them in to talk about solutions, right? And just as Dr. Fox and I mean, all of y'all are pretty much on point. I've personally never been to an SCRS conference. I'm going to be going to my first at the end of this month. So if you're going to be there, say hi. But I think it's important maybe to also invite them because the truth is they are very huge. They do have access to so many sites. And because they're able to bring awareness because they're able to get all those surveys and all those kinds of things, that is very important information to have, right? Hopefully at some point we can get to the level where we're able to reach so many sites and have that kind of data to back up the information that we're covering. However, I think maybe it's a good opportunity to potentially openly discuss with SCRS and say, hey, we'd love to invite you on, right? Come as a speaker and we can talk about what better things we can do with that data and potentially, what kind of conversations we can have with the sponsors and CROs based off of all the information that you've gathered, especially, patient retention, all the financials, all those kinds of things. Because, I mean, we are small. We can only go so far until we continue to grow. But I do think that, no competition. I think that it's important for everyone to have progressive critique so that there's ways to find on how to better perform. And what better than to bring somebody on maybe from SCRS and openly talk about a way that we can get solutions on their end, right? Because we ultimately, if we're all for sites as organizations, then we should all technically work together cohesively to be able to continue on to the same mission, right? They're so big in that case of like how much they have to charge and all those kinds of things. I don't personally know too much on that end. You guys do. But I mean, I'm sure to some extent the price is there for XYZ reason. So, we can go on the smaller end, be cheaper for those that are, monetarily unable to afford the bigger prices. And, they're able to market a little bit higher. So maybe let's all work together, cohesively grab the entire site ecosystem and come together to make change, right? Because if we're trying to do it, they're trying to do it, let's come together and do it together. So I do think that would be a really great option if they're, of course, open to coming and speaking.
And hopefully they will. And one of the things they do really well that we don't, quite honestly, because we just started, is surveying the industry, getting the pulse of the industry, like Dr. Fox alluded to earlier. I mean, we're going to start with our surveys. That's how it starts. But that is one thing that, to answer your question, Mr. Darshan Kulkarni, that's one of the things they do well that we haven't done yet. But that doesn't mean we can't. It's just something that we have to start looking at.
So I've been throwing an idea around, and I don't know if I've mentioned it to anyone here, so I can see an initial reaction, and I'd love to hear from all of the listeners. What do you feel about a packed score award at the SOS conference? Not necessarily a flying turkey award, but a score that actually has metrics behind it.
I like it.
Can we see the flying turkey too?
So, I mean, actually have the metric, like this is so-and-so, they got this award and this is their packed score. This is why they're good. This is what sites say about them. Here's the actual numbers, and not just here's a trophy and we're not going to explain why.
Man.
Yeah, I think explaining why is really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's one thing just to get an award, but explaining it in detail. I mean, you might have some new sites there that are from a rural area that have less resources. They're unable to know that XYZ CRO sponsor, whoever is unable to, is looking for their kind of site. So if they hear those kinds of things, they'll reach out directly, right, at the actual conference and potentially get that connection. And the CRO sponsor will actually have a new site or potentially a few more new sites, and the site will have potentially more studies. So I think that is really great. And if whoever it is that's getting this award is known to be paying out quicker, easier, better, I mean, naturally, if I were to be a site owner, I'm going to want to do my best to just apply to all their studies, agencies, right?
Work with them. Yeah, I think there would be a competitive advantage if you had a validated award.
But Fox, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate and like do the anti-marketing thing real quick. So if I'm sponsor or CRO, like a pharmaceutical sponsor or a CRO that's thinking about coming, and I feel like this, I'm gonna be put on the spot. Can I, if I'm sponsoring the conference, can I see the results before I come? That way I
Nope.
can just not
No.
come.
Nope.
How
No.
do we
Nope.
guarantee that we're
You
playing
just
fair? Like,
full plain honesty, disclaimer, sponsor at your own risk, man. That's
Yeah.
why, these decisions are not going to be influenced by metal and paper.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I'll be one of those founders. When I'm gone, then you can start to sell out. But
I mean, and then again, going back to the
No.
focus, right? The focus is the site. So
yes.
if you're there for the site, not just for the metrics or for XYZ financials, which obviously it's business, like Dan says, it's going to be there, right? But if the focus is for the sites, you are going to be open and willing to hear that critique. I mean, because it has to happen. Just like vendors need to speak to sites on their engineering processes for different systems. Well, this is horrible. I don't need this. I don't need that. Go back to the drawing board. I mean, this is the same thing. Ultimately, if everybody wants to make more money on site end, CRO, sponsor end, and vendor side, the site has to always come first. Like that's just how it goes. So, if that is the case, you need to come, you need to hear that critique. And if you didn't win the award, well, you know what I mean? Like you have something to work towards moving forward and not just having these continuous meetings with groups or departments in your company. This is what I do have kind of an annoyance about. You need outside feedback, right? To bring change. Why? Because if you make a group of individuals or department in your company, they're indoctrinated with your onboarding, right? With what your company is about, with what this or what that. You're not bringing free, fresh opinion into the circle, right? And then on top of that, there might be a bias, right? If, say, you're in the circle, you're trying to bring change, and say you have a manager or management that has a dead set on one viewpoint, some people might not even want to openly speak about what they think is bad about the old guard or however you want to say it, right? Because management might get upset. So there's all these things that you need to be considerate about. And so I feel like using these organizations, using external groups of people that will openly be honest, I think is a huge gold mine for these companies that, haven't really been touching yet. And they need to, because that is how they're going to, push through all this stuff and stop wasting man hours, work hours, bringing on so many more people, paying so many more people. And, for what? I mean, to bring the same, sorry, that's my dog. They're in the background. The zoomies, sorry.
I thought you were tap dancing.
Those are the CROs. Those are the CROs running away from SOS conference after listening.
I think this is a place where we're going to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And because that's what we need to do, have the uncomfortable conversations to find the solutions. Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can't hide this. It's only festering, and it's only going to get worse. And realistically, it's just hurting our patients. So just get it all out there, get all the problems out. And so that's actually why I set up my podcast the way I did. I know there's a lot of you've already been on the podcast. Chris, you're next. So
Great. Sounds
the whole
awesome.
idea is I'm trying to pick people from across the industry, two different spectrums, two different opinions. And it's a social experiment every time. I ask them the same exact questions. They don't know what the questions are. They don't talk to each other. So it's completely organic. And let's just see what they have to say. And then at the end, you analyze the two and you try to figure out the similarities so you can figure out good solutions. And I have to say, the one that Dan did just recently with James Fowle was perfect for employability. And I've got people listening to that now who aren't even in the industry, but it's just really good job seeking advice. So if you haven't caught that episode, it's helping a lot of people. A lot of people are like it. That's my selfish plug. I'm going to shut up about that. Point is, SOS is literally, you're looking at a giant screen of very humble people who only care about helping our sites and therefore helping our physicians and our patients. I could tell you from personal experience that the number of hours invested into this versus the amount of money that I'm not getting is very selfless. And every single one of these people on here have busted their butts, not for a paycheck, but to try to make change in this industry. That is your difference. So we're going to try to keep the lights on. We're going to try to make some money so we can reinvest into you. But if you want to support a very encouraging and empowering industry that is dedicated to improvement, I highly recommend registering for SOS. And if you want to sponsor it, Chris, why don't you take this? If you want to sponsor this, at the very minimum, I've had people come to me saying, I don't want anything to do with the conference. I just want to give you money because you need to exist. And so as a result, I think what we're going to do, and Chris kind of helped me on this. Why don't you explain?
So
Chris doesn't like that
We're
idea.
gonna
What?
have the donation
so you
button.
sound like the Girl Scouts outside of what's going on there. Sounds like the Girl Scouts outside of the supermarkets. I don't want to buy cookies. I'm a diabetic, so I just give them $5. I don't want your cookies, so here's $5.
There you go.
Exactly. That's exactly
Who wants to buy some
right.
SOS cookies?
So that's what it kind of sounds like, which is fine. I mean, I don't necessarily think there's an issue with that, but it sounds like we're just taking money for nothing.
And why do you give those girls? Why do you give those girls $5? It goes deep. We don't got time, but you love entrepreneurship. You love sales. The fact that these little girls are doing
Actually,
it,
that's not
supporting that.
That's great, but that's not why I do it. Me personally, it's just because it's partially that, right? The girls are out there trying; they're young. I want to see that they feel that they're successful.
You're messing up my analogy, man. Come
I
on.
understand, but that's why
my mind is in meme mode. I need memes. Simple.
Be confident in what you're doing. I just like to help with that.
We got you, Chris. Look,
okay. Yeah.
Victor, they say we're ducking this question. We're not ducking anyone's question. We're going to get back to all of them, right? Victor asked, will the DCT, Decentralized Clinical Trials, give more autonomy to sites, or will it continue to monopolize the industry?
So I wanted to actually mention something on this. I don't think we, the meeting that I had yesterday with an engineer that's trying to figure things out and on their end of things, we didn't get into this detail. However, I thought it would be amazing, since this is a huge topic, actually bringing on somebody from the end side of this and actually talking about their struggles, what they find issues as far as what would actually be positive on it, what would be negative. And then I even think the bigger end point of this is the actual problem or the in-between gap of communication between sites and these engineers that are creating it to be best for patients and sites, right? Because they don't have that endpoint. And so I think actually having a segment to talk about this openly, because if this is coming and if this is nothing we can actually change, then the next thing we should be focused on is how we can more better communicate with these individuals that are actually behind this creation. Because if not, we're just going to continue to funnel through issues in these systems. We're going to, sites are going to continue to have make extra work or have to do extra work because of the errors that are being created. So I think SOS would also be a great opportunity to be that middleman organization to bring those contacts together and have an open dialogue, right? Because if they don't know what's going on, Chris, you're on mute.
You're on mute. If you're trying to talk, Chris, you're on mute.
He might be on a phone call, actually, guys. This is how Chris rolls.
Okay.
Yeah,
Clients call.
Sorry, I got another meeting. I got to jump off of this. Have a meeting.
All right.
I told you guys.
Yep.
we only have like a window like this to get Chris, like this, and that's it. He's gone. He's gone.
So,
thank you, Chris.
I'll be
Girl
on
Scouts love you, man. Girl Scouts love you.
Chris is the official.
Bye, everybody.
And Vitor, just to answer your question, just from what I've seen, DCT worked for COVID, and I think you're going to see it's going to evolve into like a DCT 2.0, 3.0. What's going to happen is, and this is, I'll say I'm biased, but I'm biased for the right reasons. If you're not paying attention to Medvector, I highly suggest you do. Medvector's technology and the technologies behind Medvector and what the others are doing are going to integrate research into healthcare providers, access the local physicians, and most importantly, give the sites control to expand their footprint in the community. So to answer your question, I don't know if I'd use the word monopolize. I think you're going to see it going much more site-centric in the future, especially when Medvector, as an example, starts to really take hold.
Well, I just want to throw this out there randomly. I know we never talked about this, but I wonder if there's any chance or interest in, like, could we get somebody or some people from high level within the Science 37s, Care Accesses, Medibles, Cure Bases, like, to come talk? I mean, I think that would be an interesting conversation to have with sites. You know, they tend to have the conversations kind of in their own little sphere, it feels like, but not really speaking to sites who are asking questions like, hey, what's the deal? Can we work with you? Are you a competitor to us? Like, can we feel each other out? Can we learn from each other? You know, again, to go back to like the SCRS thing, I'm guilty of, talking trash and being silly, but ultimately we're all in the same boat here, and I do want people to realize that, like, I don't I don't hate these guys. They all have good intentions. They're all trying to do the right thing, to different degrees of outcomes. But I think it's great if we could all actually get them together and talk about it together, because it's sort of like sites talk about DCT companies talk about DCT,
but
they don't really talk together about it to really get a feel for, like, what's going on. You see some of these conferences, like, was it CNS or DTRA? There's 30 DCT companies up on stage, in a little weird echo chamber. It's and all trying to sound cooler than the next one, but, like, what's real? You know what I mean? And what's real and what's going to be of benefit potentially to sites. So I think that would be an interesting concept if anyone would agree to it, although they may have
what
may hate us,
what about if you got it is literally a round table. Let's get those DCT folks in there, and let's also get those solution providers in there that try to support the DCTs, because that might have been what Ashley was talking about. Was the people writing this stuff they've probably never read a CTA, they may have never performed a clinical trial, and so it all looks great on paper and logistics and Six Sigma, but then it never survives in real world.
Yeah, so that conversation I had yesterday, he was saying, well, do you have any maybe feedback or, what you've experienced, anything you don't personally like about certain systems? So I gave an example, not in detail, obviously, but just generalized example. And I felt like it was the most basic thing as far as, like, what I've had to experience or whatever in my years of clinical research. And he was like, wow, I've never heard that before. And I was just, for me, I was just like, wow, you haven't, So, and he explained how there's a lot of just disconnect and they want to fix that. And I think that on every end, everybody wants to fix that, like, at least in the tech sector. I'm speaking very general because that is not my area at all. But I say that because, if that is the case, it would be great if we could really get out there and speak openly about this, because not only would this get, be an option or a resource for all these vendors, tech vendors, to utilize, right? But that would probably even really push forward the, I guess you say invention, or the word's not catching my head right now. But anyways, just, actually innovation on how fast these systems are being made and how accurate they're being made, not just to benefit the site, but potentially CRAs, CROs, and sponsors to more communicate cohesively, and even with the patients, right? So I think that would be a really great thing to do, actually bring a space for all of them openly.
We are, but unlike other conferences, it's going to be a round table like this. They don't get to hog the stage and just give their investors talking points to get another sponsor, another site paying them, so they could grow their top line revenue, so they can deposit it at SVB Bank. Okay. We got more questions. Oh, anyone else? Did we answer this though? Where Victor's going to say we're ducking him?
No, we're not ducking, man. We'll put that on our agenda for things to talk about.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think honestly, the answer is both, right? I mean, honestly, I think in some ways it will give autonomy to sites using tools like Medvector and others that are out there, but potentially it could also create a whole other line of, more self-contained, like companies like, like Science 37s or Care Access. They're kind of their own thing in a way, and maybe not giving autonomy to sites, but instead kind of running their own show off to the side. So I think it'll do both probably.
Mhm.
Okay, we got another one from Becky. Becky has a good topic. Can we talk about the challenges of keeping on sponsors' radar, even if physicians change? Let's be honest, it's the people behind the MD that really make the trial
Yes.
successful at the site level.
Yes. Becky, you should join CRPN. That's my recommendation. So sorry. That's exactly what we're doing.
Always plug in, Fox. Always plug
Sorry. It's marketing. Marketing. But
That's good.
I see this and I'm like, I want to help you, Becky. Please call me.
Yep, I was gonna actually say the same thing. Like, try to join a site network, one that's free or one that's low cost. Um, there's benefits to both. We have one that's very low cost. Myself and Chris just left. He'd be happy I'm plugging, but yeah, there's plenty of reputable ones. But you get two people on here that represent two, and I'm part of CRPN, and
Mhm.
Fox is
Yeah.
part of ours too. So we work together.
I'm part of both too.
Mhm.
What about like what
YPN
else?
and
Like
CRP.
what about like branding for sites? Like besides site network, like
Well, yeah, I
what do
was
you
going to
think?
say, like, if you, like, for us, I hate to say this, but in some ways, it's like the PI is almost like an afterthought. Like,
Yeah.
we've got PIs, we can choose one, according to the best fit. But oftentimes, it's this conversation is starting with us as a site or a
Mhm.
site network, whatever you want to call us. Sometimes I don't know, just site for simplicity's sake. But like we're engaging, we're talking to the sponsor or CRO about our capabilities, what we can do, what we've done, and then sort of backtracking into a PI, right? That's available. So I think if you can differentiate yourself and the services you provide as a site, it can be a little bit easier to be front and center of the conversation versus the PI, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I'm not diminishing the role of the PI in any way. We all know it's extremely important. But frankly, if I've got 7 oncologists, well, it may not matter which one it is. And one may not be any more of a key opinion leader than the next. So it's really more about what we can provide and what we can deliver as a site. So I think if you start to lean into that, develop that out, you can lead the conversations with that. And then again, it's like, hey, let's take your pick. We got the PIs. They all have the same patient population or access to. Let's go.
So maybe for the agenda for SOS, it could be like site reputation and pipeline. That would be a really good thing to talk about.
I think that'd be good.
Okay, next one. It is better to create independently owned and small sites because the money paid by sponsor goes to the study team members that does the work and not being shortchanged. Not really a
So
question, but a comment.
I think this is interesting. Obviously, what you see, like look at the difference between a private practice and a large healthcare group. A large healthcare group, you've got layers of administration, some being paid more than the physicians themselves.
Yep.
So that creates a dynamic that's not always great and happy for the physicians. But in the same way, a gigantic research organization, and if you go look at the boards of some of these IROs,
Yeah.
they're filled with 10 guys who are VPs at CROs. They have more people on their boards than I've have in my company. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's insane to me that they're eating up all that money. They have to be. So I tend to agree. I think if you can stay small, you can oftentimes take better care of your employees and the people on the ground versus having to, shovel all your money into a guy wearing a suit who doesn't really provide that much value when it comes to putting patients into trials.
Yeah, I watched your live stream yesterday, and that was my comment. Was the sites, if they remain small, they remain more efficient, and there's benefits to growing big, but you do lose some of that efficiency. Related to this topic, I wanted to bring up, and as an example of like the inside baseball kind of topics I want to have, is pairing studies, like the art of choosing a study. So you get to a place as a site owner where you stop saying yes to everything, and then you start thinking about, okay, how does this study impact my other studies? Like, to where they're not competing, they're actually working together. So screen failures from one study are natural, perfect fits for another study. This is what I mean by pairing the studies, like wine and cheese. There's an art to this. No one's really ever talked about it. I was going to do a podcast with Chris on this. Dr. Fox and Brad, you guys are welcome to join. Monica, Ashley too. But pairing the studies, like not just saying yes to everything, and then just being like thoughtful about, why am I saying no to this one, or why is this one actually a good fit because of the other studies I have.
We used to
I-
call it fallback or overflow studies. And it was because they would catch the patients that weren't quite qualified for one of the other studies we did. And at the same time, you kind of have to balance competitive enrollment, which, like you said, it's like wine and cheese. You got to get just the right combination. But it is really a good synergy once you start to develop that. It also happens when you start to define your specialty as a site.
Yeah, that's right. I learned that from you, Dan. And I've been doing that.
It's a great recruitment strategy because you know what? You're going to be screening and screen failing for one of these studies anyways. Might as well find a place for your screen failures to go. Like almost like having opposite requirements to get a patient in.
So study
I'm really
select.
liking all these topics. I
Yeah.
think
Are we
they're-
taking notes? I mean, hopefully we can get a good notes for the survey that we're going to set out. When
Historians
do we,
will record. Um,
the ancient LinkedIn archives talk about the history of clinical research?
Carla Vera Navas, we're getting you there. Okay, you're coming. You're coming.
Yeah,
But
Carla's got to be on it. Carla, for sure.
Yes.
Phase 1. Phase 1 is like its own little thing, but so many site owners are attracted to the bright lights and the big money that comes with phase 1, but I don't think they realize the work. So Carla's like there to convince people not to want to start phase 1 sites. And then if you still want to do one, she's the person who's going to work with you to do it.
Yes. Yes.
Phase 1. Any thoughts on this?
There's a reason why phase ones pay so much money, and you definitely have to earn that money. There's a lot when you start going into phase ones. There's a lot involved, and there's a lot of risk really when you go into phase 1. You have a higher chance at a lot of things.
What about another one from Victor? We need to talk about logistics. This is hindering competitiveness in clinical trials and restricting patient recruitment.
I agree completely. That's a good one to put on the agenda.
Yes.
Logistics is another one. Sites have become hostages of the industry, low budget, and unfounded daily demand.
Man, can we just get him on the show?
Hey, Victor.
Yes,
Victor,
come,
I think
come.
you've earned yourself like a spot on one of our roundtables.
Round tables. Keep pushing them out.
And that's it. Oh, rural site perspective. Becky. Yep.
Yeah.
Rural, urban. It actually relates to logistics.
Judy.
Yeah.
And Judy.
Yeah.
Judy
I think this is
Judy too.
definitely an area we need to really talk on because of the sake of like groups are wanting, bigger companies are wanting, to expand and the patient diversity and all of this. I think this is a huge one we need to talk on. And I feel like everything else that we've just covered, these other topics, are really important for these rural sites because usually they have less resources. There's not a lot of training opportunities and things like that. I came from a rural area. At the time, I didn't even know there was such thing as a research site, and I was literally working all sorts of clinics. So now they have very much overexpanded and grown, thankfully. But yeah, that during my past 2 years, like they didn't have anything, and that was a huge area bordering Mexico and Montemorelos. So those kinds of things are really important to talk about.
Yeah, I agree, Becky, completely. This is a big passion of mine. Flyover states don't mean that those patients should be denied clinical trials. And getting access into our rural areas, it's key. It's absolutely key. And it's one of my biggest missions in this industry is to make sure that every patient within these areas has access, if they need it, to clinical trials. So
I, yeah,
yeah,
I
I
I think
really
one of the points. Sorry, Dr. Fox, you
no,
continue.
please, I'm done,
Okay,
Monica. It's all yours.
okay. One of the things that is important when we talk about the rural areas, and actually in general, is education to the population and targeting them correctly. Central campaign doesn't work for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's different as the patients are diverse. The campaign has to be diverse too. It's central
Mhm.
campaign really, I mean, sometimes helps a little bit, but honestly, in general, it doesn't do much. It does um, prevent the sites to get more budget for the marketing that they need to do, and every single site knows exactly what the community they are targeting looks like, how they have to um, target them. So that's another topic that we need to talk about it, because the sites needs
Mhm.
help with that. Besides getting the patients from the database, obviously we're serving a whole community,
Mhm. And
and
I
we
mean,
have to
even
yeah.
educate them.
even getting awarded, for rural sites. We're working with a site that's, South Oklahoma. There's no one else down there. Only like private neurology group. They've got 30,000 patients like in their database. It's big for a small quote unquote rural area, but I can't get a study to land down there. Which, of course, sponsors kind of talk out of both sides of the mouths. They want, yeah, we need more, but also we're not going to award it to you. It's the same team that's supporting the trials here in a more, I say urban. It's Oklahoma City, so it's not exactly the most urban market in the world, but it's
But there's
frustrating. It's frustrating.
But
there's a
that's
demand for
safety.
this. There's a
The-
demand for rural. We saw
Mhm.
the fiasco implode before our eyes with Care Access. I mean, their whole premise was we'll get you the patients in places that sites are not at. Tradition
Mhm.
like those were all rural places, and the execution was bad, but the idea is there, and sponsors are willing to invest money into it.
Yep. And well, for me in the rural area, it's frustrating because a lot of these rural areas don't have physicians or physician specialists who even want to do research, which means that you've got patients with these crazy diagnoses who are literally traveling 2 to 5 hours one way to go to a trial. And I just it's I've had the phone calls. If anyone's in research and your family knows you're in research, as soon as something happens with a loved one in health, they call you up and say, "Hey, help me get in a trial." That's what happens. But I've told Dan this story. People call. I I've got this diagnosis. I don't know what to do. The doc says there's nothing they can do. They're not interested. I feel hopeless. It feels like there's no choice. So I go to research. Oh, I have to travel halfway across the country to get the trial I need. So then there's just these barriers. It's just very, very sad in a rural area.
I think maybe another good topic, especially if we have like I think Judy would be a good example for this because she said that she's openly with her site been working to speak to other doctors to see if there's ways to bring them onto research and collaborate. Maybe even openly speaking about, especially for the rural areas, how you can approach another physician that is skeptical of research, because I think that that is also a big issue. I am currently speaking with a few doctors at the moment, one of them that's already very much interested, but because when they think of research, they think of completely like uphanding their site and reconfiguring things and just switching everything around. Really, I don't think that's the case. It's just ensuring that you have people trained and the processes are in place, and ultimately, right, like having the sites, the site and or sites have a study ready to go. And I think that having those open conversations is also a good topic because that's how we also expand the doctors, the amount of patients that we potentially have in the connection for the site, for the different studies and all those kinds of things.
Okay, we got this. Site success is directly related to the people that are employed at the site. I'm successful for my team because I work my ass off to find those right studies and negotiating accordingly for our site. I know our patient population, what standard of care is for the patient. So
Good
yeah, I
job,
mean,
Becky.
another one of like investing in your staff. I have theories about this. You need a farm system for your site,
Mhm.
just like baseball. All the baseball teams have minor league teams. They all do. And what happens when a player gets injured or someone gets traded? Hey, we'll trade this guy because we got somebody else lined up that we've been developing. So we'll trade this guy. And sites don't trade, but sites do lose employees all the time. Carla says site in Latin America and why sponsor are
Love
not
this
willing to
topic.
take the risk. So much for diversification. This is why we have Latinos in clinical research as a
Exactly.
stakeholder. Here's another related one. We need to expand to Latin America. Victor, you got to come, man. Brazil
Mhm.
is the fifth country in terms of number of chronic diseases. I understand the regulatory bureaucracy, but we have incredible growth potential when the FDA addresses diversity and inclusion. This is what we are talking about.
Mhm.
Yep.
So, why aren't more studies done? When the FDA talks about diversity, though, are they not talking about US diversity? Because there's different regulatory agencies in those countries. I know Brazil too, and Argentina. They have their own. I think if even at like at a science level, if you take the microbiome of somebody who's from
Brazil
Latin
versus US.
America,
Yeah.
but in the U.S. versus someone who's still lives in Brazil, their microbiome's different. Their body chemistry is different. Um, I don't know I guess we have to define what that actually means when the FDA says we want more diversity.
Mhm.
Maybe you could do a pivot or a comparative study, these patients versus those patients versus where they are, and see if there's a difference.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
So yeah, that's. I mean, these are some of the topics, and if you guys have any more, just let us know. You guys can
yep.
message all of us. Go to SOS saveoursites.com. Okay. That's the website. Saveoursites.com. Any closing remarks from the three panelists left?
I would just say if you haven't already registered, please do so. If you already registered, as mentioned, please consider, getting a hotel, Airbnb as soon as possible to situate all that issue and not worry about it last minute. And then lastly, please be on the lookout for the survey. For those that are already registered, you will be receiving an email. Note that we will be posting about our next monthly roundtable to speak openly, right? Obviously, that's going to probably evolve as we go, but just please be aware of that. Make sure you attend. We love hearing your feedback. It's definitely helpful. And again, we can't do a great job without y'all's help. So please do your best to participate, even if you can't attend. Send us an email, respond to the polls, the survey, excuse me, and we'll do our best to make sure that everybody and every opinion is heard.
Dan, do we have more questions or more comments?
No, just more on the Latin America thing. There are diseases that we won't find in the U.S. Impetigo is a
Mhm.
good example, and FDA has to do inspections in Dominican Republic. Um, so yeah, this is a complex topic of diversity.
Mhm.
Uh, First, to define why, and then second of all, what it actually means.
Monica, did you want to close? Ladies first. I wanted to.
No, I'm just learning some of the comments. Yeah, we have many people commenting, even students from the CRC Academy.
Awesome.
Um, um, I mean, former students from the CRC Academy commenting here that are already working, and people from the industry. Wow, a lot of people here
That's awesome.
commenting on our video on our roundtable. I would like to say if somebody wants to be part of the roundtable and have a specific topic, please feel free to reach out. I am on LinkedIn. We would love to hear your voice. Like we were mentioning, this is the microphone for everybody to speak up and to bring good topics that are gonna be helping sites and I mean at the end of the day, it's the industry, right? And we're trying to make it better. we're not trying, we're doing it. We're making it better. So please feel free to reach out to us via LinkedIn. And that's basically all I wanted to say to close.
I guess to anyone out there who they really believe in SOS and what we're doing, I'm the key point for the sponsorships. We have well over 30 sponsors now, and we're going to be developing the sponsorship over the next 2 months to have it a little more refined. If anyone's interested in sponsorships, please give me a call, contact me. If you want your voice to be, if you want your presence to be part of this SOS, contact me
And
and
if you
we'll
want
have a
your
talk.
pack score, if you want your pack score improved, just a little more, just Venmo Dr. Fox some money.
Will make
That's
it
how it
rain.
works.
No, no plugs, no pack score plugs. This is strictly to make sure that SOS is fully sponsored and covered so that we can give everyone a good experience.
Okay. Last one. Carla's getting her last ones in. Can talk about the CRA role and what the expectations should be from the site towards the CRA?
That
Ooh.
Carla,
Carla,
I
me
just
and
Love
yes,
that.
Carla,
Carla,
yes,
me
we
and you,
ride in
Carla.
them. We're riding.
yeah.
I actually did want to mention we did have a lot of individuals reach out and offer, their help, I guess, for the day of the event and or in preparation. Please note that we are aware, and once we kind of get the foundations of all this officially situated and cleared out in regards to like topics and all those kinds of things, we definitely will be putting a call out to see how we can get help and how you can be of assistance to SOS as a volunteer, whether it's prior to the actual event or at the actual event itself. So please keep that in your radar, and we will be more than likely in touch eventually.
Very
Okay. Yeah. I would answer Carla's question quickly with I want my CRA to at least know the process of what it takes for us to get paid, please.
Yes.
Like, if I've had one CRA where she did her job, she just forgot to click this blue button on the bottom of every EDC page, and we didn't get paid in like 6 months. And it turns out for that study, that was the little thing she had to do. So please know what you got to do for us to get paid. If you don't know, ask somebody. If they don't know, I'm gonna ask somebody. But that's what that's like in short.
That would
This
be a good
relationship
topic to have, just so that for sites, maybe they can have that as like a checkpoint mark off with
Mhm.
the CRAs as they're starting their communications or monthly communications, however it looks, so that they also themselves also have like a layout to go by. So
it's
that would be
funny
great.
you should say that. You ought to listen to the CRP and Central on escalations interviewing Mr. Thomas Peterson himself, talking about that perspective as a CRA. There's a lot behind there. Maybe that could help to. Sorry, I keep plugging. I'm sorry. I do all this stuff. I feel like it can
No,
help.
you have to,
And
man. You're giving out golden info.
Let's do
yeah.
a panel with Carla, me, and Thomas, and maybe somebody else.
Yes. Oh my
Bunch of
gosh.
CRAs.
Tom's interview really opened up a lot about what a CRA goes through for payments and what they are allowed to and what they're not allowed to do. It's pretty good.
Well, you
I
know what they
think
won't be allowed to do is monitor our site anymore if we don't get these payments.
Pretty much. Yep.
I want to mention something else. We should be doing one for the rural sites and
Hmm.
include Becky. She's been
Yes.
mentioning really good things,
Montana.
and also we have in our group 4 sites in rural areas. So this is a topic that obviously interests us very much, and I think this is should be included in the roundtable. Um,
Yeah. Even Yuma
the
Clinical Trials
discussion.
might be rural. I don't know. Melissa said, last one, guys. Then we're gonna go. Okay. They see we want to go. The community doesn't want us to go, but we want to go. So we'll say topic to consider is cultural competency. All right. How can we use health technology? I'm gonna plug your podcast, Dr. Fox. He had a skit about this, right? Sorry, no hablo inglés, no hablo español, man. Like, Can't help you. Can't help you. Well, I want to do a study. No, can't. You got to speak English. That was his skit, and it brings home the point. Like, yes, cultural competency. How can we use technology to broaden recruitment and retention? I appreciate all of you sharing. Yes, so this one's true. This one
And
you have.
that now that you mentioned that, obviously, besides having, I mean, diversity includes everything in the industry. Besides having the employees that represent or
Yes.
reflect
Yes.
the community, we also have to have vendors or technology that represents this, that reflects
Mhm.
this. And let's think, and if we think about United States is growing to be more and more diverse every day. What is the industry thinking about that?
Hmm.
It's no longer gonna be just one, I mean, one fits all.
Yep.
We have a package that has so much diversity that it's important that we need to think about that right now, and we need
Hmm.
to tackle that right now. It's not in the future. It's now.
Mhm.
And I
The
just,
most common. Oh,
I was
sorry, I
just
just
say we
googled
can
something
end,
about.
but I would really love you to post Carla's last comment because that just is a shocker to me. Honestly, I'm not
Let's
shocked
see.
because I've heard very similar things, Carla. But
Escalation is a nightmare, and what we have to do. One of the big sponsor told me to stay in place. Quit the next week. Not worthy to lose my site trust.
Wow.
and I've gotten
Yeah.
that too. You're just a site. That's my favorite one. Oh, you're just a site. You can't say that.
Then why are you
And
paying me?
yeah, well,
Data,
oh,
yeah, like general, yeah.
It's
you're
just
expendable. You're
a
just a
site.
site. It's like, okay, you're gone then. Bye. You can't
You're
have,
just the only way we can get patients.
yeah.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah,
got,
That's what
you're
they
just
should
the
yeah,
say.
way we do the trials.
yeah,
You just, I mean, without the sites, there is no trials. That's it.
yeah.
So back to the just last thing, the farm system, the cultural competency, this stuff relates like rural. All right, the most common ethnicity of registered medical assistants is white, 54%, followed by Hispanic or Latino at 20%, Black and African American at 11%, Asian 8%. So there are plenty of medical assistants that you can develop at a site. All right, if you want Spanish, 20% Hispanic, Latino. That doesn't mean all of them speak Spanish, but guess what? A lot of them do. And if they speak Spanish better than you, it's probably a good idea
Mhm.
to bring them on if you don't have capabilities. And it doesn't cost much to hire an MA, even on part time, or even better, if you're at a site integrated into a medical practice where there are already MAs running around doing things.
I mean, to be quite
Why
honest,
not train them?
that number surprises me a lot because yeah, I'm here in Austin, Texas, and even before that, when I was in the rural area, my rural area where I'm from, almost every MA lab technician and X-ray technician were all Latino, like all of them, and all of them are bilingual.
Here too.
Here in Austin, the doctor's offices that I go to, all Latino. So I mean, I don't know if that's like if that's a good representation, to be
It's
quite honest.
normalized. It's
Yeah,
fully normalized.
I really don't. I feel like that doesn't, at least from my experience, and that's that I'm in a very big city. Um, yeah, I think that
The
there's
bigger cities skew the number. Where I'm at is Latino, almost 100% MAs. But I think the more rural, like in the Midwest, they'll skew the numbers white to
Mhm.
Caucasian.
So it all
And
skews itself to some kind of an average where it looks
Mm,
good, but then you look at
mm,
the pockets and it's like same thing with you look at that diversification by PI, and that's where it really shows.
mm.
I'm gonna plug.
Plug away.
Yeah, if you have, I mean, if you find this kind of professionals, and your site don't have established a process of training them,
Hmm.
we train them
There
for
you
you.
go, Monica.
And sometimes
Yes.
you can even include that in the budget for the sponsor. We have done that in the past, and I mean the sites have done that in the past, so maybe you can do it too, especially if you are located in a rural area.
Hmm.
All right. I think that's it. Everyone satisfied with their closing remarks?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And
Yep.
what a great
SaveOurSites.com.
turnout. I'd love to see this turnout next month. If you loved watching this and if you have friends and you're like, hey, you've got to keep an eye on these people. They're doing something.
Please share.
Please spread the word because we can't do this without you. We really need our support from our community.
That's right. Like, subscribe, comment, share. And most important in this one is share. Share, share, share. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody who stuck around for an hour and a half. Thank you, Monica, Ashley, Dr. Fox, Brad, and Chris, who had to take off early. That's how we roll. Take care. SaveOurSites.com. Bye-bye.